Welcome to Podnutz, the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 205. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live call-in show for computer repair techs. We answer your questions on running and operating your computer repair business. The call-in number is 1-888-697-0162. Let me introduce the co-host. We have John Dubinsky from the MavenGroup. John, how you doing?
Locked and loaded.
Awesome, man. Good to have you. And also joining us today, we have Brad Torrey from TTCS Computer Services. Brad, how you doing?
Awesome. How's it going?
It is going great.
Cool.
All right. We are going to share a couple of tips with the audience. And to get them started, let's see. Brad, why don't you regale us with a tale or two of what's been going on with you?
You think I'd be more prepared for these things? I don't know.
We just make it up as we go. That's what I do with this show. I just show up.
That's what I do with my job every day. Yeah, no, let's see. So I think last time I mentioned I was going to do a network overhaul in a restaurant, do an overnight job and clean up. And oh, you're supposed to turn your ringer off when you get on these things. Anyway, so I did that. I went in at 2 o'clock in the morning and started getting into it, and it was pretty bad. It was worse than I expected, actually. I was going to get a lot more done, and got the whole thing, got what I was going to do wrapped up at 9 a.m. And I'm going to paste a bit.ly link in the chat, and I'll send it to you, Jeff, later for just so if anyone wants to look at the photos of the before and afters. I sent them to you in an email at some point.
Yes.
It was so bad. I was expecting to just mount the patch panel that was buried under the spaghetti of cabling, and then just kind of clean stuff up. I ended up having to redo the whole thing, tear everything apart, put it all back together again. And
yeah. I'm looking at the pictures.
It's horrible, isn't it, John? It's horrible.
That was a brand new install by a professional, quote unquote, who had been their IT guy for years. That's what he left them. And they asked me if I could support that network. And I'm like, I don't even know. There's like 3 switches in there. I don't know what, and somehow they're all desegregated. So somehow they've got maybe VLANs or something. I still haven't got the right password for the router yet, because they're not openly telling their old IT guy that they have a new guy coming in, so they can't tell him that they need the passwords. It's a mess.
Oh no.
In that sense.
You think he'll notice if he comes in?
Yeah, well, apparently not. I mean, if he's the kind of guy that would leave that, he probably wouldn't ever look behind that, or you know what I mean? Like, how would he know?
And for those that don't know, it literally was like a humongous ball sitting on the ground. I mean, when he talks about a rat's nest, literally it looked like a rat's nest.
I mean, that honestly made me laugh out loud. That was
no, the reaction is perfect. For me, because I was going in having to support that, the reaction wasn't laughter. It was more like crapping my pants. But like how do I do this? But to like complete the visual, there's probably 40 to 50 cables all coming to a central location like they should. But then from there, they took a loom and interweaved them into like a rug, and then threw it up on a anyway, so that was an all-nighter, just sorting, cleaning that up, installing the rack, redoing the patch panel, getting that up and going. And then because they open at 7 a.m., that only gave me like a 5-hour window to tear everything apart and put it back together again. And I was getting it finalized at 7 a.m. when they were starting to walk through the door, and it just all came on. Like, I didn't make any mistakes. So at the end of it, it all just worked, which was like, okay, just slowly, methodically cleaning this up, tagging and labeling everything before I take it apart, putting it back together again, and it all worked. I don't know if that's a tip. That was just that was fun. That was a long night. And then I spent a couple hours just kind of like detailing. So if you see it, it's actually not even finished. If you look at the final picture, there's another night of work in there, but
And I think you made the right decision, because when you come into a mess like that and somebody asks you, can you support this? You look at it and go, not like this, we can't.
Nope.
But if I tear it all apart and rebuild it again, yes, I can. So,
Yeah.
no, I think that's good.
Man, already at this point, you're better than most. So that looks nice.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it looks really good. Very cool. All right. And Mr. John Dubinsky, what do you got going on?
I don't know necessarily if I have a tip either, or I don't know if you'd say this is a tip, but I have a suggestion that I'm going to throw out to everybody. And maybe it's just because I'm getting older and I appreciate this more and I'm not as quick as I used to be. But I've had an occasion to talk to a lot of vendors this week. We always call our vendors, and I'm talking about the support side of the vendors I deal with. A couple different router vendors, Arachnus, Calyptix, a couple other vendors. And it really made me realize this week, due to the time crunches I were in, the value I put in what I would call my top tier vendors. And I would suggest I probably pay a little bit more for their products, but the past week really made me realize why. Consider that when you're buying a product, if it's just a little bit more or a couple points more, the value you might get in the support from that vendor is worth every penny, if you think about it in the long run. That's all I'm going to say.
That's good, John. And I think a lot of people, we are, what do they say, price conscious. And sometimes we try to look for the best margin to make the most profit, but we don't realize, a lot of us, because I think we've all done it, we don't realize that our time is very important.
Absolutely.
And when your time's not important, you will be that guy or gal running around like a chicken with your head cut off, never seeing the end in sight and wondering why in the world you ever got into this. But like John said, if you pay a little bit more and you have that better support, you're going to make your life so much better, because it's not all about the end dollar. It's about your sanity, and it's about being able to be expedient in your time and make things happen. And I think that is a great tip.
And I think it's a couple of different levels. One, the support of the product itself, if we pick on like routers, firmware updates, and all that kind of stuff. Two, somebody to call if you do run into an issue,
Yes.
sort of, and how fast they get back to you on that. So it's a chain of events there, chain of things to consider.
That's good. Very good. Well, I had an interesting situation come up, and I had somebody that I do work for. I've worked on his Windows XP machines, because he has proprietary software. I do that periodically. Still, a lot of stuff he's moving to Windows 7. I'm starting to work on his Windows 7 machines, and he gets a lot of refurbs. This particular refurb, and I'm looking for an answer to the solution because I have not found one yet. This particular one, and I've done all this remotely, and I basically have not been able to upgrade his computer from IE8 to IE11. It fails every time. I've went in and I've reset the Windows update. I've went in, used the Microsoft Fix-It, tried to reset everything there. I've tried several different solutions. There's even some registry fixes you can go into. I've tried all those, clearing the cache in several different areas, nothing. So I was able to download IE10, and it updates to IE10 no problem. Now, the weird thing about this is that not only will it fail on the IE11, whether I download the standalone or I do it through Windows Update. Now, again, I'm doing this remotely. So it will either, if it fails out on those, I don't know why. And I'm trying to figure out the only thing I've found so far that it might have something to do with the media that was used. Whatever ISO was maybe put together. Again, these refurbs, I'm not sure exactly how they're done. He buys them from different vendors, online, offline. So I don't know what media could have been used. Now, I would think if I was to use my Windows 7 ISOs that I have, that it would actually work. But I don't know. And it's like, do you want to spend that much time? Part of me just goes, hey, you know what? Just use Google Chrome. It's updated. It'll run. You're at IE10. It doesn't really matter at this point. I mean, is it really that important? So if anybody out there knows a fix that maybe I haven't tried, and again, I've tried a lot, send me an email, podnutz@podnutz.com, and let me know. And maybe I can figure this problem out. I've been working on it for about a week on and off. What's happening is on certain fixes, when I'm going in and resetting things, sometimes the computer will, on restart, crashes my software, my remote software, and so I have to have him get it back online and go back in. Plus, I just work on it in little spurts because, again, I'm just trying a bunch of different things and have not found anything to work as of yet. So, anyways.
So where are we at with that? We're thinking that it's something to do with the original ISO that was used?
That's the only thing that I could find, is that this failure, this particular failure, comes from certain types of media being used. And I know it sounds weird, because really if you look at Windows 7, we're using the same ISO when Windows 7 was launched. If you get it from Microsoft, it's the same one. It's loaded up with IE8. You can't even put IE9 on there, right? So, anyways, yeah,
I don't know if this would fix it, but if you can get the IE updates separately, you can download IE11. And the last time I did a clean install of Windows 7, I found that sometimes stopping the update service and then installing the patches prevents the update service from getting in the way. So you can run a command line net stop WUAUSERV. That stops the Windows Update service, and then you can run any of the offline updates. So that might be I don't know. Otherwise, at that point, at some point, if you're having that many issues, just nuke and pave. It's a new system, right? Other than
it's
but it's a refurb key,
which again goes in. Yeah, and that's not a big deal. I could do that. I have the products to do that. But the problem is what I don't understand is who out there is refurbishing these machines and then not updating everything on them. It's like, hey, I nuked and paved it. Here you go. Here's your ISO from whatever, 2008.
Boy, that's a great question. I got all these refurbs behind me that I'm rolling out in some factories for a customer in the factories. I'm trying to remember how updated they are. They're not updated all the way, but I mean, they're not as bad as this fresh install that I'm doing over here. So, but that's from a pretty big. It's from a pretty big refurbisher. So,
and what's weird is a lot of the updates will work, except for IE11 and a handful of optional updates, like Windows 7 service updates. There's like maybe 6 things. Everything else updated, no problem.
Brand new clean machine?
Yep.
I mean, is it what kind of computer is it? I mean, is it one of those things where he could pop the disk in and you could do the install again and get reconnected? Is that person that savvy?
Oh, yeah.
Is it worth it?
I could, if you wanted to, he could drop it off. I mean, it's not.
I thought maybe this was your New Yorker or something like that.
No.
Okay.
No, they could drop it off. It's not that. But it's like, how much do you want to? What are you using it for? How much do you really want to go into this? Again, I would be a little irritated that I bought it from a refurbisher and they actually didn't set it up correctly.
Right.
That's
depends on which fight you want to fight, and then you always worry about what's going to happen in the long run. Eventually you're going to run into something. So.
Yep. It'd be nice to find a fix, but there are certain things out there that, for whatever reason, just cannot. Well, everything's fixable, right?
Well, you also got to pick your battle, too, after a while here. I mean, you're just getting an education in how to fix Windows 7 updates that's not going anywhere, right?
Just one update. I just need Internet Explorer 11. The rest I could care less about. They're optional.
So even the Internet Explorer installation won't work? The separate installation?
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's what I said.
Some guys in the chat are saying Winston Wolfe had this problem. You could poke him.
Okay. I'll probably reach out to him. It's one of those. It's just a weird thing. And again, like I said, I could probably, if I nuked and paved it with my ISO, probably no problem.
Sure.
And I think it's a Dell machine. I think it's a Dell refurbished. So.
I think you got some media for those.
Yeah, absolutely. Because my good friend John Dubinsky supplies me with all the latest and greatest.
Who?
That Johnny be good.
Johnny. Johnny Ponytail.
Yeah, Johnny Ponytail with the. Is that what you're going to wear for Halloween? You put on a hat with a ponytail?
Let's not go there.
I was thinking about being a man in the van for Halloween, but I don't think anybody will get it.
I was going to walk around with a trunk, and just slamming it all the time.
I got to get your kids out a little more. Jeez. Okay.
Well, I got one who made actually, this is a side tangent, but I have one who made he's going as a pizza. And he took some styrofoam, made a round thing, painted it up, put all the little toppings and stuff. It looks beautiful.
Nice job. All right.
Wonderful creative attitude there. All right. Let's see. Well, if there's nothing else at this point, I think we can let's take a quick little break and we'll go into our main topic. All right. If you would like to be a guest on Podnutz Daily or this show and actually share in the round robin, having fun, talking tech, or on Podnutz Daily, just talking to me, hanging out, and just sharing your story, then go ahead and send an email to guest@podnutz.com. And we will get you on one of those shows. Or both, if you'd like. Now, I know a lot of you people out there are wasting a lot of time on Facebook. I mean, interacting on Facebook. And you probably have the time. So I would love to see different people kind of roll through here and just share their stories, share what they do, share how they do things that is a little bit different than everybody else. Because what I've learned over the time that I've been doing this, in the time I've been in the business, is that everybody does things a little bit differently. Nobody, you can't walk into a computer repair shop and go, unless it's a franchise, hey, they do everything exactly the same. So I would really love to see a lot of different people just kind of roll through here. We've got our standards that come in and share, and thank God for them, because without them, there would be no show. But I want to see some of you guys actually go ahead and take the plunge, take the time, and it's an hour and a half on a Sunday, or maybe 45 minutes for a Podnutz Daily, whatever. So depends on how the conversation goes. But I would just encourage you to go ahead and send that email, guest@podnutz.com, and get signed up. And guess what? It's free. So, all right.
Hey, I'm putting my 2 cents in. I've really enjoyed the last couple of dailies.
Good.
Had some good guests. Yeah.
Agreed.
Awesome. I love talking to new people and getting their information and seeing how they do things. So,
it's just great to hear the different personalities from Colin and the stories he had across the pond, and then Mark, and it's just good to go.
Yep. And I will put that out. Thank you for reminding me, John. If you are overseas, which I've ran into this a couple times with people that are like 6 hours difference from us, I can make an adjustment in my normal times that I do a Podnutz Daily. So we can move it up into earlier in the Sunday afternoon before this show for those specific situations. But normally Podnutz Daily is recorded at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every week. And this show obviously is at 4:30 or 4 o'clock to 5:30 on every Sunday. And a lot of people are probably asking, why do you do it on a Sunday, Jeff? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it's the only day that I have available, and I spend I start at 3 p.m. setting everything up. Now, obviously, I've prepped things during the week, but really 3 p.m., and usually by the time I get done with editing, posting, getting all this stuff done, it's about 10 o'clock at night. This is what I do every Sunday. So this is like my batch day. It's the only day that I can do it, so that's why we do it on Sundays. So if you guys can find the time, I would really appreciate just sitting down and talking to you. And I love to talk to different people all the time. And, I mean, I love to talk to the same people because, you look at John, and I just, yeah. Is that a tissue, John?
Yes.
am I whining enough? Listen, just suck it up and come on the show, would you? All right.
Hey, man, you work hard. I'm just giving you crap. Period.
All right, let's go into our main topic. And again, because I like to be a little controversial, just a little bit, we're going to talk about antivirus, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that might be actually the name of the show. Maybe it's just the good, the bad, the ugly. And you guys can figure out which one is which.
I know where I am. It's all right. It's all right. Damn. Every week. Wow.
All right, so antivirus. I want to talk about the pros and cons of antivirus, the things that we look for when we're reselling an antivirus, when we're using an antivirus personally, however we're using antivirus. And I think that it's important, but I think everybody has a little bit different stance on it. And I want to talk about some of the things that maybe antivirus vendors do that they probably shouldn't be doing because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And we'll kind of get into that. And I don't really want to talk, we're not really going to name any names because I'm not interested in that. What I would encourage everybody to do after listening to this podcast is go and download the trials to each and every one of these antiviruses and just try them out. See how they work. Use them on your own system. And we're going to talk about what I use on my system, what these guys use on theirs. But John, I know because you are a person that goes out and you love to change things up all the time. You're constantly in the market looking for the latest, greatest thing that's out there. No, you're looking for things that help your business. So from your standpoint, what are the things that you look for in an antivirus? And what are the things that you don't want in an antivirus?
Wow, where do I start? Well, I'll name some names. My two favorite products for sure are Bitdefender and Kaspersky. And when I say that, I like those two with their endpoint protection, their business class protection. I don't know anything about what you would install out of a retail box with those products. So that's my disclaimer on those two things. I use both software as a service. So I have an endpoint control panel that I roll those out. Bitdefender is a standalone control panel. I roll out Kaspersky through LogMeIn, which is a new for LogMeIn as of about 2 months ago. I find the protection pretty much the same. I'm probably going to be moving over to Kaspersky as soon as LogMeIn gets everything figured out for most of my customers, purely because can't beat the price compared of the two and what's included with my LogMeIn subscription. Bitdefender is beautiful, though, from the aspect that the control panel is very fast. I can roll that out. The product is very light. It also has a lot of features built into their endpoint security where I can lock down the USB ports. I can turn off all sorts of things. I can make the CD-ROM not work, all from within the endpoint.
Wow. Okay.
Protection-wise, I haven't had, I hate even to say this, any sort of serious infection, crypto locker or anything since I've started using either one of these products, knock on wood. But the caveats to all of that, you always have the problem with any product I've ever used where somebody goes to install some sort of application and it gets blocked. So, or if both of these products have a firewall in them, which I usually leave on most endpoints, but I turn off on a lot of things because simply it just gets in the way. And I have endpoint protection and all that usually at the edge with the routers that I use. So I'm not too worried about that. What am I missing, Jeff? Anything other specific?
No, I think those are good key points, good and bad as far as what you want and what you don't want.
And again, I would roll back to the same thing I talked about at the beginning. A lot of that has to do with what you pay for that product. Some of the products don't have a very good reputation or might be cheap out of the box. So again, is there going to be a vendor there to support you? I have a line I can call. Bitdefender is fabulous. They'll remote into the PC. I've actually had them create a whitelisted, what would you call it? Something they added to their database to whitelist a product for one of my customers. So,
okay.
I mean,
that's good. That's
been
good
very attentive. Right. Yes. So, but you pay for that, a little bit too. So,
nothing wrong with that. Again, you want that support. Hey, sometimes you got to pay for a little bit more.
What am I missing, Brad? Anything?
I mean, what I like about when I AV stuff, I like obviously high success rates. low impact to the customer. They don't like being bugged a lot, and it creates a fatigue for them. So the less it pops up and bugs them while still doing its job. Mostly I like, instead of bugging them, I like it to report back to me. So the one that I use a lot is F-Secure. I get email alerts, and they also have a dashboard, but it'll pop back and say, hey, we blocked this. You don't need to worry about it. We already handled it, but this happened on this PC, and it'll identify the computer and the customer. That's nice. And then when you need to set up like exceptions and rules and things, that needs to be pretty easy to do. And again, F-Secure is really good about being able to create a profile that automatically pushes down to all the computers in a group. So if you know something's kind of a less used application that the general community as a whole doesn't really know about, and you want to create an exception for that, and you want to push it down to 20 computers or 100 computers at a time, that's something that needs to be easy to do. F-Secure is good at that, which is why I like it. And then price is like the last on the list. If it's really expensive, no one's going to go for it. So
Right.
But yeah,
Now in the F-Secure, when I used F-Secure too, and they're sweet, you could also push out Windows updates and stuff like that too, and some other product updates. Are you using that?
Yeah, they manage all third party, like a ridiculous amount of third parties. They maintain
that's
updates.
very nice. Yeah.
So
yeah, I'd put F-Secure on my short list. I think they're great too. You can do most of that from the my Bitdefender control panel, meaning profiling and all that kind of stuff, which is great. I cannot do that from LogMeIn and Kaspersky at this point. So that's a negative.
Yeah, I think if you're using some RMM tool that includes Bitdefender or something, you kind of can get some of the other features. F-Secure we use in most cases because we're not using an RMM for the most part, so it's kind of like a poor man's RMM.
I think it works nice. Yeah, I put it a notch or two above a poor man's, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, but in the absence of an overall RMM tool, F-Secure kind of gives us that monitored. It's as a standalone product, it's pretty top notch as far as giving you that monitored antivirus, but also the patch management, and then a dashboard that you can just quickly jump in, and it gives you a grid, and it shows you like these computers are out of compliance and do something about it. And then these computers are all good. You don't need to worry about them. It's pretty good. It has a few little, like everything, like all RMM tools that I've ever worked with, it'll tell you that there's a problem, but it can't figure it out itself. So you've got to manually go in and deal with it. But I have not deployed an RMM style, like a monitored solution that is perfect. I've tried quite a few, and have rolled back because I'm like, these are creating more headaches for me trying to solve the problem that the RMM tool is creating than this tool itself is trying to solve. So,
absolutely, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times that we look at antivirus and we know that it is something that's important that we put on a system, whether the customer's doing it or we're doing it for the customer and we're doing some sort of monitoring. I think the biggest things is, and you guys have nailed it, is you want something that's going to do a good job. And now let me just say this up front. All antivirus, in my opinion, is just like hard drives. They all suck. They just all suck. They're going to be variances of what they do better than others. Now, I know a lot of people will go out there and they look at things like AV comparatives and stuff like that, and it's like the holy grail to antivirus. And this is what's good this month, and this is what's good next week, and who cares? There's two types of scenarios. There is I can put this in a lab and run all my stuff against it and say, this protects you, and here's how it protected you, and here's all the false positives, and here's this. And then there's what we call real world, where you actually have a daily computer user that actually goes on the internet, does the things that they do, and maybe they're not in nefarious places, or even if they're in a place where something has been attacked, a good known website, a lot of times most of the antiviruses will get that stuff, and it's pretty fast and furious because those things are being updated all the time. And not only that, a lot of them share their definitions across the board. So everybody is grabbing the same definitions when one is finding it over another one. So, I mean, they're all so comparative. And I have yet to have a computer that has had a antivirus on it that has not been affected. You get them, okay? Because here's the bottom line. If somebody forcefully clicks on something because it pops up or whatever, and they hit it, and whether they hit the yes, the no, the X, whatever, and if the whole thing is a window of saying install whatever it is I'm trying to install, you're going to click off on that, and boom, you're going to get infected. Now, antiviruses over the years have become better at doing a lot of what they do, and so that's good. But really, you want something that's fairly robust. You want something that is light on the system, because obviously if you have the greatest thing since sliced bread, you're going to have a lot of problems like these guys were saying. There's a lot of times where I don't even like to use the antivirus's firewall. And here's the thing for me for antivirus. I wish antiviruses would kind of go back to doing things the way they used to do them. Like, be really good at your one thing that you do. Not you're adding all these other things in because you want to compete. Now you have this product that a lot of times we are having to go in and fix because there's certain situations that pop up where somebody needs to use this piece of software, or this is making a conflict with this driver or whatever. So as far as like RMM tools, it's nice to have an RMM tool, and I've seen people go back and forth on this, where you have an RMM tool that basically runs the antivirus in the background and only notifies you. It doesn't notify the end user. Nothing pops up on their screen. You're in control of all that. And I kind of see the pluses to that, because that way you don't have the customer interacting with that antivirus. They don't need to. They're being protected in the background. Now, other people will argue that, oh, I need that thing to pop up and say, hey, we caught this, that, and the other. No, you don't. Because people don't care, number one. Number two, when a pop-up comes up in the corner, whether it's for an update or something else, people ignore it all the time. Why? Because we've told them to ignore it. Don't touch the pop-up that pops up on your screen. Now, here's the bad thing. There are certain antivirus vendors out there that thought it was a good idea, and maybe it is for certain customers, to have a pop-up come up and give a link to some sort of article in order to help protect you better. Yet we've told our customers time and time again, hey, when you see a pop-up, don't click on it. Call me. And yet people will have something that they put on a system, and it pops up with this thing that says, here, click on me, even though we've told them not to. So we're getting this back and forth. And I'm not going to mention who it is. You guys can go figure it out for yourself. But the bottom line is one of the things that I would like, even if you want to put a feature like that, which I don't think is a feature, I think it's added gobbledygook. But if you want to add that feature in, turn it off by default, for crying out loud. Then, if we feel like we want our customers to see the pop-up, not click on it, not care, and even if they did click on it, not read it anyways, then we can turn it on. But the reality is they're not going to. So stop. Stop trying to help me. Help them. It doesn't make any sense. Anyways, that's kind of my rant on antiviruses, what they can do for you, things that are important. In my opinion right now, probably as far as things like Windows Firewall is probably still, as far as software, is one of the best, in my opinion, firewalls that does its job and stays out of the way most of the time. Not all the time. There's firewall issues there too. Anyways, you guys got anything to say to that?
No, I like Brad's point and your point. The security software the user should never see it.
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of like us. The less they see us, the more we're doing our job. There
you go.
Yep. It's like in a car. On most cars, there's a check engine light. It doesn't tell you what triggered the check engine light, because 99% of the people driving the car aren't going to know what to do with that information. It's just hey, something needs to happen to your car, and somebody who knows what they're doing needs to look at it. And when they pop up and say like Trojan dot blah 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 has been detected, they don't know what that means.
Right.
So what are they? Why even tell them? It should pop up. There should be a check engine light on your PC. Just pop up and say, hey, you need to call Brad.
Or there's even like one of the premium products that a lot of guys use or we use, you know, it comes up when there's an update for the software. It says, do you want to install the update? Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You're on there. Just do it.
Right. Yeah. I just don't understand this whole pop-up thing. How many times have you guys gotten in computers where there's, okay, Java hasn't been updated, Adobe Reader hasn't been updated, and you ask the customer, hey, why don't you update these? Well, I didn't know if it was good or bad. You always told me not to touch them. Okay, fair point. Yep. You're right. But the problem is, now because I've taught them that, and you've got these pop-ups instead of just taking care of it and updating it and protecting them, what you have is you have holes in the system that can be attacked. And again, we're there to protect our customer. Okay, we're not there to make it more complicated. We're not there to make their life this pop-up haven where they got pop-ups all over the place. Do this, do that, do this, do that. It's like, come on. No, they don't need that.
Taz makes a good point in the chat. This, to your point, Jeff, or Brad, with the check engine light, or they just keep driving for a year with the light on.
Yeah.
or I would suggest even better yet, they get a little piece of tape and put it over the light.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's usually the O2 sensor anyways. It doesn't matter. But it's a good point.
Yeah, but there is the 1% of the time when it is something.
True.
You know.
So, yeah, I think a lot of times there are just things that, and obviously there's engineers and companies out there that are making these products, but again, it's one of those things where I would want them to help us, not hinder us. And a lot of people out there, I'll just speak to this right now, a lot of people out there will put free antivirus on their customers' computers. And again, I personally think that's a bad idea because that free antivirus, whatever it is, will constantly pop up and nag your customer. And if it doesn't start from the beginning, eventually it will. Because guess what? These companies are in the business to make money, and they should be. They have a quality product. We should be paying for that product. Now, if you want to put, and this has been my rule of thumb, if you want to put a free antivirus on your Windows machine, I use, yes, Microsoft Security Essentials with Windows 7 or Windows 8 and above, Windows Defender. And guess what? Here's the difference. You'll see AV comparatives go, oh, Windows Defender or Microsoft Security Essentials is way down here. And I'm going to tell you, baloney. Because real world scenario, and I've done the tests on my own personal bench machines, it's not. It catches the same thing as everybody else. And here's what it doesn't do. I haven't had it break anything in my Windows operating system yet. Not saying it can't, just haven't had it happen. And so, therefore, if you're going to put a free antivirus on there, just use what's already there. It works well enough. And I will say this. You don't want to just stick with that because that's, let me put it this way. Antivirus to me is the first line of defense. Okay? And I'll put this into a military analogy that John will get. Back when I was in the Army, and when the wall was up in Germany, we actually had to do border tours and patrol the wall. Okay? It was between Czechoslovakia and Germany where I was at. I was in southern Bavaria. Okay? We're out there for 30 days. We've got all our vehicles out there. We're ready to go. What we were was basically a speed bump. If the Russians decided, hey, we want to come across that line, we were there just to slow them down for a second. So again, we were that first line of defense. Hey, something's coming your way. Better get ready. You want to use other things. And that's why a lot of people talk about internet security suites. And they'll talk about internet security suites because they have all these different things in there. So if you're going to use Windows Defender or Microsoft Security Essentials, get a licensed copy of Malwarebytes for that customer. Just have them buy it. No big deal. You can resell it and make a little bit of money on it or whatever, or just put it on there. And that will give them a secondary line of defense for all the crapware out there. All the things that when they download it, YouTube Downloader, it downloads 15 other things with it. Hey, we're going to make your machine faster. Hey, we're going to clean your registry all the time. Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. And so a lot of those products will actually stop that stuff from coming in. Now, if you put the free version on there, when a customer runs it, that's the time that it's going to end up working. And here's the thing, and I learned this a long time ago. I can put free whatever on a machine and tell the customer, hey, just run this once a month. And guess what? When I see that computer a year later, it will have never been run. Yes, never. So therefore, you have to do certain things to protect the customer. Anyways, that's my 2 cents.
Well, something to keep in mind, at least from my perspective too, with some of my clients, I have some compliance issues where I need to keep a threat log for up to a year that I got to be able to go back to. So my products have to be able to provide that. Now, most products will provide you a threat log locally. The other thing you can do with a threat log, or if you're using a managed type product, is you can also incorporate those reports into what the reporting you're doing to your client to say, hey, look at all the viruses we caught and we blocked and we deleted and made you safe. So there is some information that you can do with a managed product that you might be able to put into a report to provide to a client as well, or you may need to provide for compliance needs as well.
Okay.
So
that's good. Now, Tad's cool. I'm looking in the chat room. Tad's cool is he's actually helping on the phone lines today. He says with Windows 10, you can run MSE and another antivirus at the same time. Now, I will tell you that, yes, you can, but what ends up happening is most of the machines I get in that somebody has put a free antivirus on that machine and Windows Defender was never turned off properly, which does happen. Those machines, in my opinion, they run super slow. So you really can only, in my opinion, you can only really have one antivirus running at a time. And that way, again, because what ends up happening is these antiviruses don't know each other, and they end up fighting. Now, Windows Defender, which used to be just an anti-malware back in the Windows 7 days, it wasn't actually an antivirus. It ran into, or actually Windows Vista. In Windows Vista and 7, it ran as a anti-malware. And so you could run that alongside of these other things. But Windows 10, Windows Defender, or Windows 8 and above, Windows Defender is a full-fledged antivirus, anti-malware, all built into one. And I run it on my own personal machine. And part of the reason is because if you think about all the things we do here today and all the stuff that I have going on with just doing this podcast, what it does when I use things like Windows Defender is it doesn't cause any problems with my system. And that's why I like it. I would love to test out these other antiviruses on the machine, but I can tell you that from using them on my bench systems, I've got to turn firewalls off, I've got to make adjustments, and it's just, for me, it's a big headache. And again, I really don't get, I haven't been infected since 2001, I think, was the last time I've actually had an infected. Now, a lot of people will say, well, how do you know? Well, because I use these products all the time, and I do a cleanup on my machine just to see what's there. But again, and I used to be one of these people that would reinstall my operating system every 6 months. I don't do that anymore. It's lucky if it gets changed every 3 years.
So we're seeing best practice with Windows 10 is no Windows Defender if you're running a full-fledged AV product.
Correct. That's what I've seen anyway. So because I've uninstalled AVG and all that kind of stuff, because in what I've seen is Windows Defender doesn't shut off. It should.
Yep.
When you install the other antivirus, it should actually shut it off, but it doesn't always.
You thinking that as well too, Brad, or what's your experience with that?
I mean, maybe it's just old school because everything's kind of changing, but I wouldn't run two AVs side by side. That just seems like a bad plan. But I also second your, Jeff, I'll recommend my antivirus, but if someone absolutely just doesn't want to pay it, then Microsoft Security Essentials and Defender in the newer versions of Windows, I've had good experiences with it, actually. When I wasn't thinking, kind of didn't think about it and plugged a USB into my computer when when my computer was running Security Essentials, it popped up and was like, whoa, there's something crazy on this USB drive, and we're blocking it for you. And I'm like, oh, that's right. Why did I never swap USB drives back and forth between computers that I don't trust. It's dirty.
That's funny because I for my tool set, especially when I have an unknown machine, I still use a lockable USB drive.
Yeah, and usually I do have an SD card that has a lock on it and a little USB adapter, and that's normally what I use. But there's always exceptions. I forgot that or whatever. But no, but I like it. I like the MSE and Defender, and I don't. If I have a client that's on a retainer and they're a business client, and you're using my AV product because I need to be able to manage it. But
absolutely, I agree with that.
In those cases, when there's someone that's kind of like a one-off or a residential customer that I work with or whatever, I will. If you're going to go free, I've had enough good experiences with the Microsoft products that I'm like, well, go. If you're going free, just stick with the Microsoft stuff because it doesn't break stuff like you said, and I have seen it be effective. So.
And I'll tell you, one of the products that I've tried over the years, on and off again, I mean, literally for years, has been ESET's NOD32. Great program. It is always ran super light in my system, right? It's always caught the bad guys, no problem, if things are popping up, whatever. It's on the little bit expensive side, so you kind of pay for that, right? But I decided, because somebody was busting my chops about not running Microsoft Security Essentials, and this was back in Windows 7 days, on my bench machine. And I won't say that person was Chris, but he was. Chris was actually busting my chops about not having a real AV on my bench machine. I said, okay. Now, granted, on my bench machine, when I plug in a hard drive and I'm backing up customers' data, it goes on a hard drive that sits on that computer till I can move it over, and then eventually I wipe all that stuff out. But I was sitting there, I said, okay, so I uninstalled Microsoft Security Essentials. Now I had this system running, no problem. I had put on ESET's NOD32, no problem. Runs light, runs great, okay, no problems, and running my full scans on the system, and it might have found a couple things, whatever. But after about a month of putting other customers' data on there, I ended up pulling NOD32 off and putting Microsoft Security Essentials on there. And all of a sudden, about 7 different Trojans. Boom, 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 boom. Now, some of them might have been a false positive, but there was a couple that were actually legit, that were actual Trojans that were sitting on the customer's data. Again, they'd have to be launched. It's not that big a deal. Microsoft Security Essentials actually found them. This paid-for antivirus did not at that time, for whatever reason. There's a lot of reasons for that, but who knows? I don't keep up with all that stuff. So at that point, I just said, you know what? They're all comparable. And what I will compare this to is, if you guys have seen the new Sprint commercials, hey, we're within 1% of Verizon. And that's kind of the way I feel with antivirus. Take your AV comparatives and shove it out the door. I don't really care, whatever. Again, real world scenario, we're all right about 1% difference. That's it. And it changes from time to time. So, not that big a deal.
AV comparatives is good, just maybe that you know what you're running doesn't suck, for lack of a technical term.
Right. That's a great point,
because, the
John.
top 5 are going to probably fluctuate. Bitdefender will be at the top one month, F-Secure the next month. And if, AV comparatives to compare, there's a couple out there like AV comparatives, Bitdefender might be on the top of one and Kaspersky might be on the top of another. But, I'd say if you're in the top 5 or, well, heck, there's so many products now, I would guess the top 10 are pretty damn close if you looked at the ratings. If the top one gets 100, the next 9 probably get 99, 98, 98.5,
Right.
So they're probably
you basically really don't want to be using the guy that's more than 1% off of the others, because that's probably going to start a pretty big tail, like nosedive. They're going to be all in the same little cluster, and then they're going to drop off. 5. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
and I look at those again, it goes back to, I think AV comparatives in companies like that give you a good baseline, something to look at. Hey, I've got a chart, because a lot of us, that's how we see things. We see things in charts, in levels, and different things. It's a lot. It's very comparative to going to like PCPer.com, right? And that's how I basically build my machines. I go in there, I look at their latest, greatest stuff that they have on there. I get a baseline because I really don't want to go out there and study and review and all that kind of stuff. So I look at all that stuff. Now, here's the thing. I can go out and review video cards, right? And the video cards, oh, this one gets 75 frames per second, and this one gets 72. And it's like, but this one does this so much better, and this has got a bigger cache, and it's got more RAM, and blah, 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 blah. And by the time your eyes glaze over for most people, it's like, okay, that's cool if you want bragging rights. But the reality is, okay, on a 2K monitor, will this video card play everything in max settings? It's somewhere between 40 to 60 frames per second. Because anything higher than that, I'm not really going to see. And anything lower than that, if it drops below 30, I might see a little bit of stuttering here and there. But that's all I'm really looking for. I'm looking for, the real-world scenario of, yes, this video card is going to play everything that I throw at it for the next 3 years, no problem. Versus, so anyways, I think they're a good baseline, good to look at, but don't let it be the end-all, end-all. I think one of the biggest things that everybody needs to do is just try it out. And the problem with me is I'll try it out, but I won't try it out on my own system because I really don't want to screw it up. So for me, I could throw it on another machine, but the problem is I don't really use that other machine. So you really have to throw it on a machine that you use. Now, for me, I use my kids' machines. I can throw whatever AV product on there, check it out, hey, and I've had them, again, I've done tests on there where they've caught certain things and other things have gotten through that I never had gotten through on Microsoft Security Essentials or Windows Defender. Just saying. And how do I know that? Because I run cleanups on their machines too. Anyways.
Well, Perry has a good point. There is no silver bullet. And, we could, between the three of us here and everybody in the chat, I think the consensus would be that we have there's probably a top 5 that we would all name, and there's the worst 5 we would all name. And everybody would be in agreement. And I think you'd be within, that 1%, 2%, 3% variable for all of them.
Well, except for mine. Because nobody would agree with me that Windows Defender blows them all out of the water.
I don't know about blowing them out of the water. But,
All right, that was a Hail Mary. That was a long shot.
Better. You don't even know what a Hail Mary is.
I think it's a football term, isn't it?
Better than not being protected. Better than nothing. Yeah, for sure.
It really only
I think it's more than adequate. Go ahead.
Yeah, it only fails the category or the requirement that it in some way reports back to someone who's maintaining the computer. It doesn't give me any feedback as a technician. It only pops up and does its job locally on the computer. Otherwise, it is a decent antivirus, but it just doesn't give me any ability to know what's going on unless I'm sitting there monitoring it by literally sitting at the PC or logging it remotely.
And that's a good point, because and the reason I use Ninja RMM is because its antivirus, actually the customer never sees it. Now, at first, when I first started testing it out, I was kind of like, well, I kind of would like it on the local machine if I'm remoted in and this and that. And then I started figuring out why they actually did that and why you don't see it running at all. I just get the reports on the back end. So for me, I can run a scan from my dashboard on that machine at any time. I can reboot it. You can do all these things. Are they 100% perfect? Absolutely not. Are there times where, I might have to go in and remove a couple pups or something like that? Absolutely. Happens. I've had some of your mainstream antiviruses get ransomware. And I'm talking in the top 5.
Yeah.
So, it happens, right? And the problem is if a customer is going to click on a pop-up, which again, I'll go back to why antiviruses want to have pop-ups come up on the screen, makes absolutely no sense to me. So, anyways, rant done.
So do we think that Windows Defender keeps us safe from modern malware? I'm talking like the crypto stuff and that kind of stuff. Do you think it is good as a product like F-Secure or Kaspersky?
No, I think where it falls, it's a great antivirus for, and let's face it, the reality is there aren't really that many viruses left anymore. So in other words, people aren't really getting infected with Trojans and worms and all these different things, right? Yes, they're still out there, but they're not as rampant as they were 10 years ago.
And I kind of asked that just to be devil's advocate. While you guys have been discussing this, I've been going out and I did a couple of Google searches just on the topic, and there's two vendor. A virus says uninstall it, another vendor says you don't have to. So it's pretty much, leaving Windows Defender or not looks like it's personal preference.
Anytime I've ever installed any name brand antivirus onto a Windows 8 or Windows 10 machine, it's always, for me, it shuts Windows Defender off.
And I would say that is 100% true until I've gotten to the anniversary update of Windows 10.
Oh, okay. So there might be something.
Now I notice when I do install that I don't know if there's something Microsoft has done or if it's just a glitch. But now when I do install some products, I'm not seeing Windows Defender go away.
Gotcha. Okay.
Although on my PC I've left it running, and I pushed in the chat too. I haven't had any problems, but I don't know that I feel any better about the security on my system.
And I'll say, if you can run both side by side, more power to you. It's just, and maybe it's the free products that people are using that are trying to run side by side that it just slows the machine down. I get it, and they go, yeah, the machine's slow, and my browser doesn't work. And I go in, first thing I remove, yeah, browser works. Yeah, machine's, it's better. Now let me do a regular cleanup on this.
Brad, that might be the funniest thing I've heard all day. I'm sorry.
I don't click on suspicious links in chat. That's good, Brad.
High five on that one, buddy. Oh, man.
We were talking about antivirus. I don't know what antivirus I have on this computer. It's been a while. I'm not clicking on that.
Windows Defender, baby. Windows Defender. Well, my chat's on a secondary computer, so I don't care. I can reinstall. And I will tell you this, that the time that I did have the Windows Store mess up on there because of tools, and there was no fix. I basically had to go in and reinstall Windows 10. I was able to do it from inside of the OS and just do a reboot, and it reinstalled it fresh. And because I don't have a lot of things on here, I don't really care. So, but on my main machine, Windows Defender, baby. That's all we're doing. Anyways, all right. Any last minute things you guys want to say about antivirus that we haven't covered?
I mean, if I had to simplify it down, I would say one AV per machine. If you want to toss on, if it's a good AV, I don't think you need the secondary products like Malwarebytes and all that kind of stuff. I don't think you need it unless you've got a teenager or one of those type of users on there. You might want to dump that on there, but
your internet security suites are going to have all that installed, right? They're going to have the antivirus, anti-malware. I would step back
from that. I would not want an internet security suite. I don't want all that heavy stuff. I just want good endpoint protection that has all of that built in there. I don't want all the shiny bells and whistles and all that. I do kind of miss that from Ninja, although I didn't. What was that, WebRoot? Or what was their product? Viper. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of Viper per se, but I do like that the customer does not see it.
Exactly.
And, with the Kaspersky and the Bitdefender, it does drop an icon on the desktop. So,
and you're doing the other things, right? You're doing third-party patch management. You're doing Windows patch management, all that stuff that's keeping that up to date and hopefully keeping the holes out of the system where people can actually come in and do nefarious things.
Well, I don't think you can expect totally whatever AV product or endpoint protection you have on your machine to protect you against 0-day. I think the patching might be almost more important than the AV. I mean, that's probably another fight we could have about all of that kind of stuff, this whole topic. But I mean, if you just have an obvious hole, I mean, if the door is locked, but there's a hole in the wall next to the door, I mean,
what are you doing? Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Yep.
Totally agree. And there's not a whole lot more to say to that. Like, AV is AV. There's a few good ones. It depends on if you're monitoring or not. Windows Defender is fine for the non-monitored situations. And patch management, that's one of the things that drew me to F-Secure, is that they had the patch management built in. In my opinion, it was almost more important than the effectiveness of the actual AV product.
See, I think you're getting the best of both worlds right there. And any product that would do that, you've got more than adequate AV protection plus your patch management. So, boom.
Yeah.
Right. Very cool.
Um,
All right. Good job, everyone. And let's go into, let's see, we're going to go into, I think, wow, it's 5 o'clock, man. We spent a long time on that, but hopefully you guys got something out of that. Let's go into our live call section and answer some emails and whatnot. Phone lines are open. The call-in number is 1-888-697-0162. It's always funny. Every time I think about, hey, we need to shorten the show a little bit, some of these topics just go on and on and on. And, I like to talk and rant anyway, so it's all good. Sorry, I didn't mean to steal the show, guys.
I like Computer Pro's suggestion, an RMM show.
Oh, we can do that. We can do that. That's probably a good next step, I think. All right.
That'd be
We
fun.
will definitely add that to the notes. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and start with answering the first email. What is classed as a warranty callback in our job? As in, you are called back for a problem happening again. So in other words, and this is from Tony Roberts. Thank you, Tony, for the email. This is, you've gone in, you fixed the problem, whether on site, they bring it to you, whatever. Customer gets the product back, they go to use it, and there is a problem within your warranty period, whether that is 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, 45 days, 90 days, doesn't matter. What is your response to warranty callbacks?
Well, once you touch the machine, I mean, no matter what happens for the duration of the life of that computer, it's totally your fault.
And that's real world scenario right there. That's true. Well, what's your policy, John?
Well, I'm a little bit different since I'm a flat fee for all my customers. Everything I do is pretty much warranty callback. But on the few clients that I do that have hourly, boy, I don't know. This might be out of the scope of what I do. I haven't had to answer that question in a long time. When I used to do home PCs and home calls and small business hourly clients, I would usually give everything that I do, 30 days or 90 days, depending on what it is, and I'll just take care of it. Now, I think a lot of this you got to use your best judgment on as well. If you fixed it and it broke and maybe it's something you did wrong, obviously we're all over that. But, if the customer, you can't let the customer take advantage of you either. Meaning, if they re-break it just because of their behavior, you're going to have some verbiage maybe in that warranty or that callback to protect yourself a little bit.
I've actually had a recent experience with that kind of it's probably a good time. I don't verbally or document any warranty for any of my work. Nobody asks about it most of the time, and I don't tell them. So it's completely at my discretion whether or not I give somebody a warranty or not. Generally, I will err on the side of being generous, but it doesn't come up very often. And I don't, like John, I have a lot of I've got my core business clients that I deal with on a daily basis, and we have a good rapport and a good relationship, and it all just kind of works out. But I have a few, handful of referral sources, so I get new clients, and I'm working with a fairly new client now. We initially had like a network printer and scanner thing that I was fixing for them, and then I noticed that they're using their main computer as a server for both QuickBooks and this line of business software that they use. And I'm like, so you have a computer that's like a dual purpose server and your workstation. The hard drive's showing signs of failure in it, blah, blah, blah. So, we need to at least have some kind of an image or something on this thing. So I literally just imaged the hard drive over to a new hard drive, left that new hard drive out as like a fail safe because they didn't want to have any, this isn't the best way to do this, but this is what they ended up having to do just to compromise what they wanted to do. But anyway, I didn't touch the main hard drive. I just took a copy of it and cloned it over to another hard drive and left it in place. I didn't do anything that should have affected anything, but they were having some issues with the PC immediately after I left. I don't know, whatever. I was like, okay. So I went through and I found some, I think they probably were having problems with it all along, but there's like 5 projects going on that they're happy with and paid for. And this one project, apparently immediately following, had some issues. So I was able to get in there and figure out what it was. It only cost me probably an hour of my time or less. I warrantied that one job. I was like, okay. I said clearly, I didn't do anything to this computer that should have caused any of these problems. But because I, want to maintain a good relationship with you guys, and I can't prove that it wasn't me, I'm going to warranty this fix to this one invoice, just as a good, show of good faith. And they were extremely happy about that gesture. And we were both kind of on a, like, are we a good fit for each other kind of thing. And that was something that I warranted an hour of my time, and it made all the difference in the world to them. That I was like not going to be. I could have easily just said, "Well, I didn't do this. I'm going to charge you for the fix."
Right.
So I did that. I did that warranty, and now I have a customer for life. So to me, that was worthwhile. And in the meantime, it wasn't like a one-off customer that I'm never going to see again. I'm going to be now managing their network and stuff. So It made sense for me.
No, that makes perfect sense.
In essence, isn't it really just treat them like you'd want to be treated? Really?
Yeah. Right.
Yep. I mean, obviously, don't let the customer take advantage of you, because they will do that, even if it's unintentionally, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And
I think that also, and you guys have kind of touched on it too, is that when you get something in or you're working on something, and let's say the computer is slow, you're definitely going to want to, even if I can't get on the internet, whatever it is, doesn't matter. You want to do a hardware check on that machine, right? Because you want to make sure that machine there's no other problems that are rearing its head. And I'm always amazed that there are people out there, technicians, business owners, that actually do no hardware checks whatsoever. And I don't understand that, because I've had it where it's bitten me. And if I actually take the time to do the hardware check, now when I talk about hardware checks on most machines, even slow ones, it's about 16 minutes. Ooh, 16 minutes. It's sitting on my bench. It's a lot of time. But for some people, maybe that is a lot of time. I don't know. For me, it's not. It's worth peace of mind, and I make sure that, hey, I'm going to do a cleanup on this machine, but the RAM's good, the motherboard's good, the hard drive's good, the screen's good, whatever. All these different things that I need to check out before, because if this turns into from a $150 fix to a $500 fix, then I would have just suggested to them that they go buy a new computer and we transfer the data. I don't want to put them out anymore. And again, like John said, treat them like you would want to be treated. I don't want to be taken advantage of, even if it's not my fault. So make sure that you're doing your due diligence when you're checking that stuff out. And if you make a mistake, just own up to it. Say, or like Brad did, he didn't make a mistake. He just said, I didn't do anything to cause this, but let me look into it, and we'll see if we can figure it out. And I think from that standpoint, I think, and somebody in the chat room had said, you need to play it by ear. And I think a lot of times that's really what it comes down to. Now, my contracts, I believe, I can't remember, I haven't read them in a long time, but I believe they say 30 days for warranty work. But now that's warranty work labor. Like if a part fails, unless that part is under warranty. Now, again, when we're talking about laptops, there is a difference, because I tell people up front, these parts are only warranted for 30 days most of the time. Sometimes you can get screens that are six months to a year, depending on what vendor you get them from. But most of the time, it's 30 days on used parts. So you got to keep that in mind too. And I think communication up front, letting the customer know, is it's going to make you a lot more competent as a technician, and also for them to trust you in the things that you're telling them. So, all right. But if it's the same problem, hey, just fix it and move on. All right. Let's see. This is from Podnutz Daily, but it was a email sent in, and I told him I was going to read it on this show. It says, I sleep with your podcast most every night, and I really enjoy them all.
I bet we're warm and toasty.
I'm retired at 68, but I bought DataBytes almost 3 years ago, and I just acquired another company called iFix Computers. That's a great name. I have a passion for computer repair and have a lot of expenses, including paying a salary. I appreciate all you do, and if I ever become profitable, will contribute to your cause. Both of my businesses have great reputations, and each has a lot of residual customers. The one thing I would like to contribute to is tutoring. My business is in Branson, Missouri, and I have a lot of retired folks who need tutoring. So we started accumulating computers and desks to start interactive classes. I feel that anyone who has a shop could host classes and charge about $50 for 2 hours of Windows 10 101, for example. Nearly everyone I've talked to seems very anxious to attend. I've been lining up instructors who can speak on the level of our students and feel this is a great idea. And then I heard about Tara Gray on your podcast. Wow, what great timing. And Tara Gray was on Podnutz Daily a couple episodes back, and she's your computer anxiety therapist. So great title.
It was good.
Yeah.
She's very interactive and very helpful to any crowd. It doesn't matter what age you are. She's real helpful, and she'll walk you through things, not make you feel stupid. And so I think tutoring is great. He goes on, he says, I also had a quarry with a computer with proprietary software. After they were hit with lightning, I was able to clone the hard drive and save the quarry a lot of money. Wow, that's a lucky catch right there. Keep up the good work. I don't know how you have all the time to do this every week. Larry Fairchild. Thank you, Larry, for the email, and I appreciate that. I don't know how I have time to do this every week either. I just do it because I enjoy it. So this is my relaxed time, even when I get red in the face. It's no different than playing video games, though. Anyways, speaking of, little side story before we go into this last email. So one time, I used to have my stuff down in the basement, and we'd be playing online games with my kids, usually first-person shooters. And so right before my birthday, my wife and daughter come downstairs, and they have a little recording device. I don't know if they were using a phone or Zoom or I don't know what it was. Anyway, so they recorded me as I'm playing this game. And as they showed it to me later, they didn't actually give it to me for my birthday, but they made me aware of it. And I went back and listened to it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe what I sound like when I'm playing these first-person shooters. It was horrible. I mean, I wasn't cussing up a storm or anything, but I'm like going, same thing we do on the expressway, right? Come on, you idiot, cover the flag, would ya?
Wow.
Even though I never opened my mic to let the idiot know that he should be covering the flag, right? I was saying it to myself to make myself feel better. I don't know why I do that. It's just, I don't know. Anyway, my personality. Oh, all right. Third email says, Jeff, I just wanted to drop you a line and tell you how much I like your show. You're a great host and provide a lot of good content. I learned something from almost every show I listen to. If any of your guests talk about the same thing, I usually needed to be reminded about that tool, technique, etc. I think that one thing you should stress for someone getting into the computer repair business is that you should spend time listening to podcasts. I've listened to Podnutz for a long time, started when Steve C. had it. Yours is not the only podcast that I listen to. I also listen to The Geeksters, where I heard about your show, and Mike Tech Show and Tech Vets. Love your show, so as long as you record it, you can count on me to download and listen. And that was from Pete in New Orleans. And I appreciate that. And yeah, Geeksters, Mike Tech Show, and Tech Vets, when they bring those shows out, those are awesome. Great shows to listen to. Podcasts, man. Talk about... I have learned so much over the years. Even before I started hosting these shows myself, I've learned about computer repair, about techniques, about things that people do differently to give me ideas to help further my computer business along. Because, again, I don't really have all the answers. Like I told these guys, I just show up and I just talk and whatever. And quite honestly, most of the time up, even including fixes a lot of times, I just make it up as I go. But it's worked for me. So not always the best way to do things. So I've learned different techniques and different things that have made me a better technician, a better business owner, and that's what we try to provide here. So thank you, Pete, for that. Appreciate the email. Well, I guess that's it for the questions. There's a couple of email responses. So we have, during our last contest, we had a bunch of people that had, I asked them, when you're sending in your request to get for the contest if you would give us a topic. Some of those we've shared in the form of basically a quick question that we can answer during this session, and then other ones we're keeping for big topics. I know somebody in the chat room had said something about doing an RMM show, so we definitely will do that. And again, weighing the pros and cons of doing RMM, kind of how we dealt with antivirus. Good practices, bad practices, mediocre practices, all that kind of stuff. So we'll definitely put that in the pipeline for a future show. Well, I guess I was able to end it a little bit early this time, so good stuff. Brad, I appreciate you coming back out and sharing with us, and I hope more people take after you and actually start coming on the show and sharing. But you know you are always welcome back whenever you want. So if people want to find out more about what you're up to, where would they go?
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, and it's fun to get on here and just talk. I don't really even like you do it a couple of times. You don't even have to think about it and prepare. You just kind of come in and wing it as you go, and it's a good time. So everybody else should try it. If you want to get a hold of me, my email address is brad@ttcscomputerservices.com. That's also my website, ttcscomputerservices.com. Hit me up. If you can find me on Google+, I will answer you, but I don't post a lot there. That's about it.
Oh, awesome. Appreciate having you out. And Mr. John Dubinsky, where can people find out where you're at?
MavenGroup.net.
MavenGroup.net. Awesome. Very cool. All right. Come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnutz.com/Computer Repair Podcast Live. Join in on the conversation by calling in live or hanging out in the chat room, or both. We have audio available over at podnutz.com, or subscribe using your favorite podcatcher. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Computer Repair Podcast. Send your questions and feedback to podnutz@podnutz.com. Unless you want to be a guest, then send it to guest@podnutz.com. Leave a voicemail at 1-888-697-0162, and we will play you alongside our lovely voices. I don't know how lovely we are, but anyways, please consider supporting this show by going to patreon.com/Computer Repair Podcast if you've been helped by us at all. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on Podnutz, the Computer Repair Podcast.